button. I'm doing really good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah.
All right. We got Casper. Where are you in the world right now?
I just left France going through Belgium on my way home. But I have a driver, so it should be safe.
Very good. You're just getting outside that Olympic Games traffic, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, that was it was tense.
Hey, Julian, how are you?
I'm fine. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for coming. All right. We've got a lot of people coming today. All right. So has it been a good month in digital embellishment, guys? You guys been doing anything fun?
Busy, Kevin.
I have not.
I got that. I don't believe you.
Boring corporate stuff here.
All right. Well, listen, I think right now there is, we'll go ahead and get this started. So first of all, I wanted to thank everybody here for joining our Digital Embellishment Designer Meetup. I am coming to you from a hotel on the west coast of Florida. So I apologize if my internet cuts out. Luckily, we have a spectacular host in Matt Redbear who's going to be able to run the meeting. I did want to, before we kick off, thank all of our sponsors for sponsoring this month's Digital Embellishment Alliance or Digital Embellishment Designer Meetup. First off, thank you very much, MGI Digital Technology, for supporting the designers and for coming to this meeting. Also, big thank you to Sabine Lenz and Paper Specs for supporting digital embellishment, as well as the Digital Embellishment Alliance. So we couldn't do it without you guys, and we couldn't do it without you guys who are joining these awesome meetings and really helping share a lot of knowledge. So without further ado, I'd like to pass this off to the hostess with the mostest, Mr. Matt Redbear, to run the meeting. Thanks again, guys.
Is that what I am, Kevin?
The hostess with the mostest muscle. I don't know if you guys have seen those LinkedIn posts, but
those are insane.
Yeah.
You and your AI generative art. I wish I actually looked that good.
Kevin, he keeps getting more ripped the more you AI him. It's just like
I know. What are you doing? You know, I need to be doing that so I get more ripped.
Yeah. I'll have fun with it. I wish I was as creative as everybody on this call, but luckily I have I don't have that. But yeah, it's fun.
Okay, so welcome everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces here, some new ones, and I am Matt Redbear. You can just call me Redbear. Yes, it's my real name, and I think you all pretty much know who I am and what I'm about. If not, you can go to the meeting chat window, and I posted a bunch of links there. The one at the top is about me. That's my tactful blurb. And give you a little bit more background on me. It's mostly photographic production technology is where I'm rooted. So that was the sensitometry, densitometry, chemistry, color theory, all of that back in the 80s and 90s of the photographic industry, silver halide technology, and how that worked. It was just a logical progression to move into graphic arts in the digital realm once that collapsed in 1995 with the onset of digital. And then just learning all the Adobe and moving forward, taking designer roles, design lead roles, management positions, etc., creative director, and just kept moving forward until digital embellishment hit. And here we are, this magical thing that we're all here to talk about, that I think most of you have a pretty good idea what it is. How many people here actually know how it works? We have a few hands, and so I'm going to assume that some other people do not. That might be something that if you're willing, in future meetings, we could actually do a machine walkthrough for the technology, courtesy of MGI, who is our sponsor for this meeting, one of our sponsors. and actually show you whether I do it by video, or I could log in on my phone probably and actually run the machine and show you how this all goes down. What exactly is digital embellishment technology, and how does that work with particular different substrates? It would just be an overview, I think, because to be able to learn that machine, be able to learn the technology, particularly on the MGI side, uh, it could take at least half a year to really iron out all of what you need to know and how to make that work. So show of hands here for anybody who wants to see that kind of a thing happen. Anybody? We got a couple. Yeah, we've got a couple
I think
people
that'd
here.
be cool.
Yeah,
That'd be
it
really
just, and it also gets back to the element of design, because I couldn't become a good designer until I worked in pre-press and worked directly with the pressmen on how to get images to plate, how to work the images prior to getting to plate. And once I was able to do that exact one-on-one, it changed everything that I designed. So for you as well, it could be the same thing. So recently, Kevin and I were talking that a large company, all of whom we know the name that I cannot divulge here, did a focus group. They were intending to get. Sorry?
Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, why don't you tell the story, because you know the background on it.
Well, the reason I want this to be a conversation, Matt, with the team here, with everybody who's online, is that because right now there's no standards in digital embellishment, right? There's no like ISO, FOGRA, or there's no standardization of names. And so with what they think, we've been interviewing all these different brands and agencies, people like Sabine. Actually, Sabine, you were one of the people that we interviewed as well. And the
But still,
question
I have an
was, you know,
opinion.
oh, imagine that, Sabine, with opinion. And one of the people we interviewed was this massive, it's like a $2 billion a year sales company who does a lot of digital embellishment. And to be successful with this kind of stuff, before they brought it in, they held focus groups, so all different ages, and showed them different samples. And the crazy thing that came out of this focus group is like, me, I always thought like embellishment with an MGI type effect, you know, the thicker you go, the better it is, the nicer it is. What came out of it was after you hit a certain thickness, everything above it, the focus group basically said it came out looking cheap. And so they found like an optimal thickness that they didn't share with me, but they said, I think above this thickness, people don't really react positively to. Anything under this thickness or between this thickness, people react positively to. So I thought that was a really interesting tidbit. And I don't know if you guys have run into that from a design perspective, if there's like an optimal thickness of the varnish that you have. What do you guys think?
I think
I-
there's
I'll-
definitely one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I
Go ahead,
mean,
Katie.
usually it's either 50 or 60 microns is a lot, but still 50 microns, 40 microns, those are definitely, people tend to enjoy those a lot better than when you go way higher.
Interesting. Interesting. What about anybody else? Anybody else have some feedback from the market on what thicknesses people are liking the most?
You know, from what we've been kind of testing and showing around here, I would agree with that. You know, between 40 and 60 kind of comes the sweet spot. But I also think it depends on like what the application is, what you're doing, and it's also something that is a little bit subjective to a specific, end user or customer, right? Like what might look good enough for me or tangible enough for me might not look big enough for someone else, and then someone else might come along and be like, that's not enough. So there's a big subjectivity there, I think. And what call was I on? We were talking about give a gamut of options to a customer, a client, whatever that looks like, where the machine's digital. We can quickly go, all right, here's one with 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Which one do you prefer? And it's so simple to do that and, give those options and show those possibilities, because I think a lot of it comes back to you don't know what you don't know. So if you just put one option in front of a customer, they may be binary about it and be like, either I like it or I don't like it. But if you give them a spectrum, they might be able to better identify exactly what they like and where they kind of fall in that digital embellishment gamut.
That's spot on, Ryan, because it's really up to the customer. Most of our customers do very high-end invitations and they expect more. I mean, it's in less area, but in those lesser areas, they expect more. And then I've got other customers that just really want most minimal, a few flecks here and there. It totally varies customer to customer. And I can't ever quite put my finger on it. Most of them don't ever specify. They're just like, put some varnish on it. Just put varnish. And maybe it's because, do you think maybe it's because they don't even know that they have an option?
Matt, they don't know. They don't know that they have an option, and they don't know what the options are. And before we go any further, I know, and Jenkins, I don't know you, but you raised your hand before, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Oh, Sabine, thank you. I have attended one of these in the past. I'm with American Printing Company in Madison, Wisconsin. So Brandy and I are colleagues. And last month, my friend and colleague Tresco Branson attended, and I know she was very impressed by you, that she had written down your name. I think are people coming to tour here? Yes.
I got samples.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it. So I will say, going back to that impact and impression of a thick glaze, one of the things we learned early on is, especially with some of our older demographic, there was a parallel with the too much coating, a high micron. We call our coating glaze. There was too high of a micron level that it made people think of the business cards,
Thermography.
thermography. And it was, that's the worst parallel that we wanted people to draw. So Ryan, thank you for your input on that micron level, because Brandy and I are updating our swatch book. Brandy, I think that would be a great page to put into our swatch book, just those different micron heights, so people can have that experience as they're planning the project.
Yeah, I have to say, one of the, I'm sorry, what's your first name?
I'm Nicole.
Nicole, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
One of my favorite samples, I like samples that educate, is somebody who's not MGI, so I won't mention their name here, did basically a postcard that had ice cream cones with the little waffles. You know what I mean? And each waffle had a different micron. So you would go from lower to higher. And I'm like, how clever is that? It's fun because ice cream, colorful, but it also was educational because you could choose as a designer, oh, this is what I want. And I have yet, unfortunately, I'm counting on you now, to create something similar that designers can use as a tool. Yep, just shout back.
I was going to say, you can always count on me for questions. I will annoy you all with questions. So from an operator standpoint, maybe Matt, this is for you. When designers are designing for and keeping micron height in mind, can you do multiple micron height in a single pass? Like if I have a 29 and a 48 and a 72 in a single pass?
Technically, no, because when you make a run on I don't care whose machine it is, basically it's anyone's machine. The state of technology, the way almost all the machines that are installed at present, is that you set a micron height and it goes through and it creates that micron height. Now, that setting is the setting on the machine, and based on your substrate, it may relax a little more, it may beat up a little more. That's called the dyne level of the surface activity of the substrate, the paper, the plastic, whatever, putting the varnish on. So it may lay down and relax. And so you may say, make this 53 microns, but you may end up with 48 because it slumps down a little bit. Maybe it's more of a matte finish paper, maybe a glossier paper that will stand up more. So you have to be aware of those variables as well as you go along. But
I think Nicole's question, were you saying, can you actually specify different thicknesses in the file? Is that the question?
No,
You-
can you achieve it in a single pass?
you can only get close to achieving it by using grayscales in your setup file.
Right.
That was my question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole and I are on the same page here. So if I use different grayscales, wouldn't that, like, black is the highest and then we're going down?
No.
90 gray, 80 gray,
Yeah, yeah,
70
yeah.
gray, 60 gray, 50 gray. And I've actually tested that out and it does work, but you get a little speckling. If you want a really, really sharp gloss with very defined edges, you're not going to get it by setting grayscales in your file. So I've actually had jobs where they wanted a very smooth, defined finish. And so I will have to run it through, the first time in this area at 21 microns, and then the next time it goes through, it's 73 microns in those areas. And that way, it's like, you got to think about the difference between, like, if you're printing CMYK and you've got all these other ink mixes versus a spot colors. The spot color is very pure, but if you want to use multiple spot colors, they have to be laid down separately.
So just to clarify for the designers among us, so if I want 5 different heights in the same image, so to speak, in the same card, whatever, I have to run it through 5 times.
If you want it really clean. Otherwise, you'll set it up with grayscales and you'll have a little speckling, you'll have a little dithering. Now, the future of the machines upcoming is that it's kind of multiple passes all in the same pass, where it just keeps going back and forth in the machine till it's done. But each one of those technically is still a separate pass, or each one of those is done by a separate row of print heads. So maybe this row of print heads is set for 21 and that row of print heads is set for 73, and they're both spraying in different places on the paper.
Mhm.
So there are other technologies emerging that will address that.
All right, back to the original question. From a designer's point of view, and it was like, how high, how shiny, and whatever can you go? I don't mean to step on the toes of any printers, but just because you can, you shouldn't. From a designer's perspective, most of the time less is more. I've seen award-winning pieces that I'm sure technically were very hard to achieve, and therefore they should get an award. But from a design perspective, they would make me think twice about choosing digital embellishments, because they were just, they are saying like gaudy.
Sabine, I completely agree. And I've actually had other print shops come to my shop and hand me their sample packs. And they're brilliant, they're sparkling, they're amazing. And I'm just looking at everything saying there's too much varnish. There's too much varnish. It gets sloppy after a while. It's just, everything is just this glob of varnish. And
right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I've actually run my machine. My machine is called a 3D machine. And so it doesn't do really low levels of varnish. And that's because of the type of print heads that it uses. It's the type of varnish that's applied to that machine. It's the way it's all set up. There's 2D and then there's 3D. 2D is going to be like 3 microns to 21, and 3D is going to be 21 to get this 240 in one pass. I believe it's 240. It might be 220, but it's way up there. And I have actually set the machine to that setting and run a job. It's an MGI machine, and they give you a sample file to try it with. And it was just in my very first days of running the machine. Blob on all this varnish and see what happens. It was interesting, but there's no definition. There's no detail. It's just these big splotches of varnish here and there, because when you put that much in one place, it starts to spread before it can hit those lamps that cure it. So you have to be very careful about the art that you're using, those high levels, and it can be applicable to some of them, but I actually do run a lot of high levels of varnish here for me. And I'm the less is more guy, right? But we've got specific examples like, these touch tags, these little tags that are used to identify products for sight impaired people. This goes through the machine 3 times, 100 microns each time, for a total of 306 microns by the time it's done, because you need to be able to feel it with your fingertips to know what the symbol means. And then I've got other jobs where if you put too much varnish under that, it's already glitzy enough. Come on, people. It's already got a lot going on. So much going on here that I just used pretty much the lowest level of varnish I could to get the foil to stick. But I did a job the other day, and this is on a soft touch stock, which is actually very difficult to varnish. The problem is that because of the surface, when you put the varnish down, it diffuses on the edges. It kind of, fades out because it's a soft touch fuzzy surface. So imagine the physics of that. Then, so what I have to do is run one pass at 53 microns, run it back through with another 53 microns. So you're putting a clean layer of varnish on that fuzzy layer of varnish. And you're building up that layer. Right, if you set your roller pressures on the foiling machine correctly, won't push down hard and hit those fuzzy edges. It just hits that top layer, which is now smooth and has very defined edges. So you end up with a very clean logo with fuzzy diffused edges. And so this is what the customer wants. It's the look they want. It's obviously for yachts. So they want a very clean, refined look, and they don't want any fuzzy edges, and they want soft touch paper. So that's something that had to be done.
So help me out, Matt, and people, you have to chime in. Otherwise, I have so many questions. Why, if soft touch is so hard to utilize for the digital embellishment part, why do so many people use it then? Because it's so popular? Because I mean, every other piece that I pick up from a printer that has digital embellishment has somewhere soft touch on it.
Not all soft touch.
Let's ask everybody. What you guys are obviously doing a lot of soft touch, Katie and Zanadia. Actually, I don't think we've ever met you, but welcome to the embellishment. What do you guys think? Let's hear from your side on why are people liking the soft touch?
On my side, they feel like it's more of a luxury feel, and they like the touch and feel of it. And it tends to, I guess, people just love to keep it in their hands. So on our end, that's why we use it, and that's why our clients love it, because it's more of an upgrade to them. Instead of,
are you on a printer side, or are you a designer side?
I'm on a designer side. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. Very cool.
I'd agree.
Anybody else?
People want that soft touch because it's a luxury feel. It's a little bit more difficult to work with digital embellishment, but people want it, and we'll try to make it happen.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there's a trick to it and it makes your life easier, and now I find out it makes it extra hard. So.
Well, I think we can talk about that. Katie, I'm curious to hear you say that it's more complicated or it's harder to work with. Can you share more?
Yeah, I mean, you can't use the machine to its fullest capability, as in getting to all these tiny little details and all this. You can't make the thinnest lines. You have to have the polymer up higher or go through the machine multiple times to get the detail. So it tends to be a little bit more difficult because the way that it has to flow.
And is that soft touch laminate? Oh no, is that soft touch laminate or soft touch?
Okay, that was what I was trying to interject a little while ago.
Yep.
Actually, Ryan can tell us a lot about that too, right? Yeah. Ryan's an expert on soft touch coating.
We do both UV and AQ soft touch coating, and we've had pretty good success with getting embellishment on it. The challenge there is you do have all those the soft touch particles, right? The silicone that actually like makes it smooth and silky, and just depending on how you lay it down. And this is where we've played with our coating technology and how we're laying it down, how we're curing it. It's going to be, it's going to affect the way that the digital embellishment goes on the sheet. So you're trying to get that spot coating on that soft particle, and it wants to bead off, right? And that's where, you know, dye levels are going to be really, really important here.
Well, what's easier for you, Ryan? Is it a soft touch AQ? Is it a soft touch UV, or is it laminate?
You know, we really haven't done too much testing on the laminate side. We're very, very focused on the coating side. We're doing testing with both AQ and UV right now, and you know, we're still working on what's the better solution there. Obviously, AQ is going to give you a much silkier feel than UV. We're still kind of fine tuning what that looks like and what we're going to get more better definition on.
Interesting. Are you guys, anybody here, and Matt, you can probably answer this. Are you guys getting any real pushback from the brands on the laminates, or not yet, or not so much?
From our perspective, they shy away from the laminates, and it's not so much of a green issue for them as it is for us. It also adds a significant amount of cost to the job, because that's that whole extra step. And that's also why where did that go? I did the, it's way over there now. We use that soft touch ready to go stock here in-house. It's actually called 120-pound classic substrates soft touch cover white. And we've tried several, trying to get it to work, because it's got to go through the iridescence successfully, it's got to cut successfully, it's got to go through the MGI successfully. There's a lot of steps in this shop that it has to go through. But okay, it's easier to embellish a vinyl or polyester laminate, which is not green. And if you're using an aqueous, some aqueous coming off of an offset press will rub off. You can physically rub it off the paper, which makes the surface unstable for long-term use. So you really need a good UV coating, like what Ryan was talking about here, to make sure that everything sticks and doesn't flake off at some point during use.
Cool. And Greg, how about you? Any feedback on your side? I know that you have a lot of embellishment going on in your shop. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, well, two things is we've been using some of the, the Nina soft touch, and that seems to work well. In fact, I would say when we're doing embellishments on gloss stock is the best. Then like the Carolina Tango stock is next. And then the silk stock, you get a little bit more spread, so it's not as defined. But for a while there, we had the laminate, and the vendor switched wherever they were getting it, and all of a sudden it didn't work good. So we actually have a good soft touch laminate that's almost as good as the gloss stock. And as long as you control it, you're usually in pretty good shape. And then the other thing on the thicknesses is we find anywhere from 40, 50, or 60 seems to be optimum. We usually pick 50, and the reason 50 is when I get files that have fine type on them, say like your Taktiful logo under your thumbprint there, I might set that up in the file as 50%, because the optimum for small type, 8-point, 10-point serif type, is about 25 microns. So I do that a lot, like on our pocket folder that we have some real fine type.
Right.
Style that back. So we run multiple levels at the same time. Maybe just 2, sometimes 3.
Right.
Depending upon the artwork.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think part of it's just testing the stock as far as the dyeing level. So we have all the pens, but I don't use them much anymore because I know what the stocks are doing.
Mm-hmm. after a while, you just get a feel for it, don't you? You
Oh,
can
yeah.
just
Oh, yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
I usually like reach behind me and grab the paper and feel it, and I know exactly what it's going to do.
So I have a question for Sabine on this, because this seems to be very technical operator stuff, like doing 2 passes to get the best possible sharpness on soft touch. Sabine, how much did the designers need to know about all this technical stuff? I mean, how technical do the designers get in the operational side of things? Give us a little feedback.
They don't, and don't overwhelm them.
Right.
Let's face it, most designers, most of their time is spent on anything web, digital, you name it. The minority of their time is spent on print, and we cannot expect them all to drop everything and say, well, you should focus all on print, because we want to know you basically should be able to operate a press by yourself. Of course not. You know, this is where you guys come in, the printers. You know, we need to be able to trust you. We don't need to know that it is 2 passes to the press or 3 or 4. What we need to know is what is possible, where the difference is, like with the grayscale, for example. I didn't know that, Matt. You know, like if I have large areas, there's going to be a little speckling, for example. And also, you know, the difference between the laminates, the AQ, UV coatings, for example. That's important because, yeah, we all know laminates have a bad rep. So if we can forego them, we rather would. So give us the high level is, I guess, what I'm trying to say, because they have to think of so many things already. And digital embellishment is not the only thing they have to think about. You know, they think about design and whatever, but give them the possibilities and guide them through it, as we talked about earlier. Give them the options, and they don't know that there are options. Most of them don't know there's 2 kinds of digital foiling available. You know, that's beyond them still. So smaller baby steps and high level and what is important to them. Look at what is important to them and then serve to that.
And you created kind of a pretty cool tool, no, with the cheat sheet for
Yeah.
designers to understand. Do you want to just tell everybody on this call what you built to help designers understand what they're looking at?
Yeah, because we work together with the FSEA, the Foil and Specialty Effects Association. We're going into round 3 now. We created a foil cheat sheet. Ah,
there you go.
Ryan.
Ryan.
Thank you. So this is number 2 that we created, and we're actually working on number 3, really to help designers. And this is still a crowd pleaser. I just was at a design conference 2 weeks ago, and they were just like, "Oh my God, you can do what?" Just to show them the difference, what is possible. They don't know what is cold foiling. Most of them have no idea and what you can do with it. Screen foiling, what? And then even especially the digital options, which are becoming more and more popular, they need to know what is the difference and why do I need to know the difference. It's actually what Matt is going to come to Chicago and explain one aspect of this when we have a full day conference in Chicago coming up end of September for designers, and really going deep into this is why there is a difference and this is what you need to know. So, and as the technology changes, you know, we're really trying to keep up to date. Like when we first started, there were no metallized boards. They were all pure lamb metal. You didn't want to touch them from a green perspective. Now more and more of them are metallized. So as well as you know, Matt, for sure the technology on the digital side is changing, and Samantha, so there is a free download. If you go to foilcheatsheet.com, there is a free download as a PDF. And then we also give you a link to the FSEA, and you get a discount through us. If you're not already a member, you might already be. And yes, you can purchase one of those books.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Very cool.
Very nice. Thanks, Sabine. So anything else? What do you guys want to talk about today? Anything that's jumping out at you? Anything that you've thought about on the design side for embellishments that we should chat about today?
I always have questions, but I want somebody else to start.
Yeah, me too. I have
any questions are welcome. You know, I mean, we talk about this every week, and sometimes things come up over and over, and that's fine too. If we hear the question more than once over different sessions, because sometimes we always have more insight on it once it comes up again.
Right. Or maybe you guys have done a really cool piece that you want to share with the group, or figure out a new technique that looks cool.
And I have a little more of a comment than a question on this one here, but this was kind of touched on a little earlier when we were talking about designers and press operators. I think one thing that has been insanely cool is, you know, I'm able to work directly with our press operator, and we just start spitballing ideas when we keep going, what if, right? And we just start getting these, well, what if we do this pass first? What if we run it through the coder here? What if we do this here? And we start coming up with things we didn't even think of, things we didn't know. And I think there's an insane amount of creativity and power in being able just to stand next to the press, have Illustrator open, and just start messing with files, because it's so fast and easy to, you know, toss a new file in, try something new, see what works, and see these possibilities. Because from a design perspective, I'm like, this would look really cool. He runs it through the press, and then it doesn't come out quite right. So he goes, hold on, let me tweak a couple settings. He's able to tweak the settings. We run it through again, and maybe it looks really good. Or maybe we've pushed a limit. But by working back and forth, we create this really cool synergy where we're able to kind of sculpt the design, not only from the design side, but also from the possibilities of the machine side. So I would say that the more you can just sit next to your operator and talk to them, we've just come up with some really cool thoughts and ideas that way. And it's so priceless what we're able to do that way.
That's the beauty of an MGI operator, is because they have a lot of bells and whistles and switches and things that they can do, and they have a much deeper knowledge of how the process works.
Sounds like you got bit by the bug for sure. I think that's how I fell in love with this stuff. Is when I was like, oh my God, we could do this. So then the next page out would be totally different with new effects. And it's, I think the only limit is really how creative you can be. And I think a lot of people on this call who kind of passionate about digital embellishments, we're all bitten at that moment when they're like, oh my God, I could just do one of these, or this has my name on it. Or, I mean, it's a cool feeling when you're seeing that kind of stuff come out.
And Ryan, that comes back to my stance that, you know, and the company here that has the machine, is that live proofing is where it's at. All of our customers, we build in a live proof. And I don't care if their offices are 30, we still have a guy hop in a van and deliver that live proof. We'll actually take the file, they'll have me design the overlay, I'll give them 2 or 3 options. I can go to the machine, modify things on it exactly, output those options, put them in an envelope, they ship it to the customer, and they're like, oh, hey, look at this one, look at that one. And then they pick one and we run with it, and then they know exactly what they're going to get. Of course, in the future, in the near future, you're going to be able to do a lot of more of that virtually. But to me, there's still nothing quite like being able to hold it, feel it, and see it. And that's just live proofing is where it's at.
I think that's a valid point, Matt, or a very important point. Just because the clients ask for something, you might give them 2 or 3 options of that. The client might ask for, put it here, and you might think, holy smokes, this is way too much. Let me show you. Give them what they ask for sure.
Yeah.
But also what you feel would be the better option. Don't just give them exactly what they asked for it. No, they don't know. So you got to give them options. You know, this is what you wanted, but let me show you what I thought might be a better one.
Nicole, you're showing us some stuff. You wanna do a show and tell?
This is fun. I love that you guys are on the same board, that showing and telling are critical in what we do. Brandy actually took me to task about a year ago because I got a little lazy and tried to do a demonstration online to sell this technique. Didn't work. And she rightfully put her design, flag in the sand and said, I'm not going to do this again unless we are going to present in person or we're presenting online remotely and they're holding them in their hands. You just can't sell it any other way. And she's right. This is a fun project I'm working on right now. So this is flooring. So this is like would go on your shop floor. It's a sample that a client wants to create a notebook. So this is the actual product. They actually applied it to a sheet of 10 mil and said, can you emulate this? Because we need to print a few thousand of these notebook gifts. So the product in hand was great, and they worked with an agency. So while we're still working on color, we gave them, to Sabine's point, 4 different options of how we could achieve that look and feel using glaze in a single pass and multiple passes. And I literally just got an email that said, we absolutely love this. We need to tweak some color, and then it's full speed ahead. So we're in Madison, Wisconsin. These people are in Austin, Texas. So
that's awesome. Easy
to just pop them in the mail and then have I threw a sheet in there that did a little explaining, but we could have also hopped on a call.
That's so
and this,
cool.
They had no idea. First, they were actually going, can we print on this? Can you put this paper with our coating through your presses? Some of our press operators were like, we'll try it. I thought, I'm not going to take that chance of having some coating do anything to a piece of equipment. And so then they said, never mind, we'll skip it all.
Right.
And so it was an opportunity to say, what if there was a way we could meet in the middle? And not every printer has that opportunity, and not every client gets that experience. So that's what's really fun about what we get to do.
I love prototyping. I just love it. Being able to just show them, hey, did you think of this?
Blows them away.
And again, we're back to they don't know. They have no idea.
They don't know.
They don't know.
So that's the beauty of digital foil and varnish, though, is that you can, like Ryan said, you're sitting there with your laptop, you got Illustrator open, you got Photoshop open, make the changes, send it straight into the machine, hit the print button, it comes out. It's just, who would have thought? Who would have thought we'd be walking around with a computer in our hand, 20 years ago? So technology.
Yeah, very cool. All right. Any other points that you guys had questions on? Zanadia, how do I pronounce that? Zanadia?
It's Nadia. But you can call me Nadia or Z for short. They call me Z.
All right. So that's awesome. Z, tell us a little bit about you. Like, tell us what company are you with? What kind of stuff are you doing?
I'm with Granco also.
Okay.
And I've been with them over 10 years.
Very cool. Fellow Floridian.
Kind of. We're originally from the Bahamas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I work on print mostly. Work with we have a production manager, which his name is Travis. I work hand in hand with him. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So you and Samantha, you're also at Brandco, correct?
Yeah, and I'm more of like digital focus in design versus print, but I am always like happy to learn like new techniques as well, or at least have a better understanding, especially with how embellishments work, because that can come in handy for how I create the digital mock-up to showcase on the website.
Very cool. Very cool. Have you guys done any fun projects recently, or anything that you've designed that's blown your customers away?
We are working on some designs for a few real estate companies, and I'm just basically testing out spot UV, raised spot UV, the same thing guys we're talking about, microns, 50 microns, those embellishments. We haven't done foil as yet. Because we are just starting out with printing, I think it's been a total of 4 to 5 years. We're newly getting things in, and I'm steadily testing.
Very cool. Hey, everybody on this team call here is a resource for you. So if you have any questions, and this goes for everybody, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. We can definitely share our information and share tips and tricks.
And there's definitely the jetforce.com. So if you're not a member there, please sign up. We have message boards there for operators and for designers as well. And you can always post a question or comment. and usually you get several people responding, to whether it's technical or design, just post it there and see what happens.
How about you, Brandy? Anything fun on your side that you want to talk about today? Any cool new designs?
Well, we've mentioned before that we do what we call a creative lab at American Printing, where we bring in creative teams from other companies and they can kind of learn and play and experiment with using these embellishments. So we've been preparing for a few that are coming up. And one thing I wanted, and Sabine talked about a little bit earlier, was kind of a design 101, big picture. What tips do you have for teaching designers who are using these things for the first time? Like it's choosing photography or, yeah.
It's interesting that you actually used the term 101 because we did that a while ago for another meeting. I called it Embellishments 101. And I don't know if I have a link posted for that here, but I can.
Matt does training actually. Matt does designer training.
Yeah. So it was basically like not PowerPoint, but similar, just a bunch of slides that step you through. I actually have it here on my desktop of what are they, what terminology do you need to use, what's possible, what's iffy, what's definitely not possible, coated stocks, uncoated stocks, varnish or foil, types of foil, all that kind of stuff. Is that where you're coming from?
Yeah, I think so. And trying to get designers to think of it in the beginning when they're starting their design and not an afterthought where it oftentimes ends up being forced.
So important.
So the usual flow around here is that, okay, well, the customer wants some embellished product. And then, I mean, it could even be something that ends up as a packaging or on a hard goods product that's manufactured upstairs in large format. It could be laminated to it, that type of thing. There's all different kinds of applications. So we'll sell it. The customer kind of comes up with a design. I'll come up with an alternate design, but it always seems to fall on the salesperson to communicate back to the customer as far as, hey, this is too much varnish, or this isn't really going to look the way that you think it's going to look. They have to come to me and advise. So I always have to go back to my 101 policies. Hey, refer to this thing. You should know that this isn't going to work. And now get back to your customer and figure out what you're going to do. So, but it's always an afterthought, isn't it? Nobody's really thinking about doing it while they're designing the piece.
Right.
Because they don't know. That's why we're here. We need to tell them that it's an option so they can think about it like they do about hot foil stamping. Hot foil stamping, they know. So they think about this from the get-go.
Yeah, Nicole,
I'm working on something right now. This is so great. So I don't have the right language. So I'm business development director here at American Printing. So Brandy and I work on a lot of projects together, but that's our mantra. Like if we can get people to start thinking about the glaze and how to use it before they get to us, that's great. It doesn't happen often, but I'm working on one right now for our Overture Center here in Madison. It's their 20-year anniversary. And so I had a conversation with them. I actually was able to use some of Brandy's designs because when in sales, I try to explain it. I'm going to say glaze. I'm going to just revert to the language I know. So there's coating on, there's glaze on, or there's glaze in. And so the idea of glazing or putting coating on top of something, that's just education that people know, hot stamping, spot glossing. But that ability to incorporate it organically into an image, that's something that blows people's mind. And until they see it, they don't understand it. So it's really important that we get people here as well to see it in action. The other thing, what were we talking about right before that? Oh, perspective. So Brandy, one of the things maybe this group can help with when we're trying to teach about how to apply these techniques, a lot of the times we use the word perspective. in our language, because we find that this technique brings something to the front. So I think, do you have an example with a tree where it's?
Yeah, it's just an idea that popped in my head trying to explain it to designers. If you're looking for photography and you know you want to use glaze, let's say you want a tree and you want a lot of detail, you want to see the bark and the leaves and things like that. You're not going to pick a photograph of a field with a tree way off in the distance. You're going to want something closer up with more detail. Or if you have a product shot of a food item or a beverage, you're not going to want to add texture necessarily to the wall behind that. You're going to want to add texture to the object that's in the forefront that you want to see. And your brain does a funny thing when it's done in reverse. If the background is textured and it's maybe less out of focus, it just doesn't feel right. So just trying to get designers to wrap their head around the proper way to use it.
I typically refer to that as focus. What are you focusing on?
Mm-hmm.
What is the object, subject, or thing that is going to be the most important, which obviously you would think you're going to put varnish on, right? Or foil or something. One of our customers is SBA. They do all the cell tower leasing and all that stuff. So they go out and service all these cell towers, and they lease them back to Verizon and AT&T or whoever. So it's all about cell towers, right? So they do an annual report, and there's always this like strange perspective looking down from the top, dizzying heights of the towers. It's always the towers because that's what they sell, right? You know, the services on the tower. So they wanted to embellish the cover photo, and I thought, okay, well, we're going to do the tower, but then I did it, and they're like, we don't want it on the tower. I'm like, what? What's going on here? What is the focus? What do you want to see the varnish on? Where do you want? I had to go back and physically ask them, what am I doing here? Because what I thought was the focus was not. So the focus is the customers.
That's interesting. I had a conversation with Rolex recently. So these people were doing a piece for Rolex. And so the piece was basically a Rolex watch across the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like putting embellishment. And so they asked me, they're, Kevin, where would you put embellishment? Well, it was like a gold bracelet. I'd be like, I'd put gold on the bracelet, gold foil, and maybe I put, the bevel in 3D. And goes, no. And they showed me what they actually ran, and it looked absolutely beautiful. Everything was embellished except for the watch. And so the perspective here, I go, wow, that's so funny. I would have never thought of going it that way. They go, there's no way I'm going to get somebody to understand what a Rolex looks like and feels like with a foil, with an actual foil. You have to see it in person to really understand what you're looking at. So by putting everything and basically creating like a negative space for where that watch is, it almost drew your eye directly the way that it was positioned to that piece. And you could really appreciate the details and the fineness of the details in the actual watch itself, because the embellishments actually had a reverse effect where it was the negative space that actually brought your attention to that piece, and it was highly successful.
Similarly,
that was interesting.
I think that's an interesting perspective to kind of go the opposite of what designers would typically think to do to highlight on the product itself. But I think it's having that like reverse texture where like some people might automatically think it would go on the watch, but I think in a way it's almost like the watch is popping out even more because you have these interesting like elements that complement the product versus having like the product being like too shiny and then having it almost look like too fake versus like showcasing what the actual product is. So I think that was interesting too with that approach.
Similarly, the whole idea behind, and I know this is slightly off topic, but it's the same type of process. Any of the 5th and 6th color stations for digital presses that use maybe a gold flake or a silver flake toner. For example, if you're designing a brochure for a Rolex watch, you'd think you'd try to incorporate some of the silver or gold toner into the design of the watch itself. But that is not true. I wish Mark Jeeves was on the call here because he could probably explain that really well, being with Color Logic, and he sets up all the templates and software for managing all that. It's the opposite. You put the gold foil and the silver foil everywhere, or it's not foil, the flake toner everywhere but on the product, and then just let that part of the product print in CMYK, and then it actually draws your eye in to the product better.
Right. And I think to Samantha's point, it makes it less cheap if it's just the product can speak for itself, right? So it doesn't need embellishment. It's almost, I think, the message. You know, a Rolex watch is so nice it doesn't need any embellishments. I think that was kind of almost poetic.
That's good.
All right, guys. Well, looks like we're coming up on our hour here. Is there any other points, any other things that we wanted to share or show or have a little conversation about?
Anyone?
Well, if you have a minute, you sent me these beautiful samples. If you can elaborate again, in some case you chose only to use the polymer, and in another you used foil.
So let me
That's
explain.
the Gentleman's Club for those of you who remember.
It's
the infamous Gentleman's Club. Nicole,
it's really a sports car club, very high end. That kind of has that like men only feel to it. So
now why in one case would you choose to use black foil, and in another you chose pure clear varnish?
So what Sabine is showing.
Wait, before you answer that, Matt, Sabine, what do you think the difference is by looking at the two? Before you get Matt's perspective on it, I'm kind of curious.
Well, I know which one is foil and which one is not. So that's why I was curious to find out why he chose one over the other.
But what does your gut tell you? What is as a designer, what is the difference between the two for you?
I think so personally, I think that's we're back to the thickness. That's a little too thick for my liking. It would be a little bit more subtle, would have done it for me, but that's me. I know this is the foiled one, and I'm not sure I like it better. So this is why my questions come up.
Okay, so
there you go, Matt. She doesn't like either.
Oh,
no. I like them both
I
for
love
different
this.
things, but I want to know. Did you run both tests and give an option, or why did they choose the foil?
Actually, we did run a test. We did an A/B test with the Concourse Club that we ended up using the foil on. So let me back up and explain what Sabine was showing. It's like a black plaque, soft touch substrate. It's very tough. We use it for folders. So the large piece is the black plaque. Both of them are actually. And it's a soft touch. And when you put varnish on it, it just shines up in that one spot. And of course, there's red foil there in the little brackets on the outside. But wherever there's the varnish, it turns that soft touch matte finish into just a super gloss. And it's like darker shade of black than the rest of the black will ever be because of the way it diffuses the light. And so this is the same thing, but it's laminated. It's a multi-layer, the white card on the back, and we have black foil applied to the front. And that particular black foil is from K-Laser, and I've also used it from Crown Roll Leaf. So black foil has a slightly different property to it. It has the same level of shine, thickness, and it has the same effect. And a lot of people, when you put them side by side, whether it was just the varnish or the varnish with the foil on it, the black foil in particular, they can't tell the difference. But to a trained eye, you can see the difference.
So why did they choose the foil?
Okay, first of all, it cost more. So we're talking about the Concourse Club here. So if they
would have been a reason not to use it.
No, they usually choose the more expensive option because that's more value. There was more work that went into it. It's the same idea behind the sports cars that they use and promote to, make their business thrive. These things are over the top. So things get kind of weird when you're talking about black on black. And in particular lately, what I want to cover in our next meeting is white on white. So I'm getting tons of that lately, and it's just blowing my mind. Everything is white on white. But when it comes to black and black, the differences are so subtle that just the difference is just barely discernible unless you know what's going on. Now, the foil does have one property. It does refract a little color in the light.
Yeah.
So the K laser, if you look at it at an angle in the light, has kind of a purplish cast to it. It's like a deep, 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 deep purple. It's actually gorgeous if you get it in the right light. So that's one thing that appealed to them. If you're using, which we previously used, and we had to get them to approve the change in foil because, supply issues. We were using it from Crown Roll Leaf, and that foil was even more interesting because if you tilt it one way, it has a slightly magenta cast, and if you tilt it the other way, it has a slightly cyan cast. It's on those two cyan magenta, or like magenta green. It's very interesting polar opposites, which is just a characteristic of the foil. But you're not going to get those subtleties with just laying down the varnish.
The foil gives me more variety. Because there's like, as you well know, there's like 500 different golds out there, for example.
Yeah.
Foil, there is, probably 50 blacks out there and 50 different whites. So it gives me more control.
It's just more subtle, and it's just a little more upscale. Okay. Now, the piece that we did for Toyota there, that was just the varnish with the red foil, that's just, we prototyped one for them earlier. It was a successful piece, and they just wanted it again. They just wanted to and show them the inside as well on the flaps. So there's all the logos of all the products that go in that brochure or in that folder in just varnish on the stock. So this is actually run because the scanners on the machines can't see the black paper. This is run blind. All of it is run completely blind. There's no registration whatsoever. So it does take a little skill to run these things. So from a production perspective, these are hard to do. Hence more value.
But therefore we have you, because you're so good and you can do it.
Yeah, you have to know how to run the machine with everything that does any type of registration turned off.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, that is our hour. I'd like to thank Matt for being such a great host, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for being so awesome with us and sharing all that awesome information. A big thank you goes out to MGI Digital Technology for sponsoring this event. Thank you very much. We couldn't do it without you. We also want to thank Sabine and Paper Specs, as well as the Digital Embellishment Alliance. Listen, we look forward to seeing you guys next month on the Digital Embellishment Designer Meetup, and try to bring some cool samples to show off.
White on white.
White on white. Maybe we'll do a little show and tell. That could be fun.